She was humiliated by her in-laws during the divorce, laughed at, insulted, treated like she was nothing. But what they didn't know, what none of them cared to ask, was that her father was a man who had spent his entire life building something powerful enough to change all of their futures. Before we begin, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that no matter how low life pushes you, your comeback can be greater than anyone imagines. And trust me, you'll want to stay until the very end. Ananya Mehra had once believed in forever. She met Rohan Kapoor during her final year at university in Mumbai. He was charming in the way some men are when they've never had to fight for anything. His confidence filled rooms, his laughter was infectious, and when he told her she was different from every other woman he had ever met, she believed him. Rohan came from a wealthy and respected family. The Kapoors owned multiple real estate projects across Maharashtra. His father, Rajiv Kapoor, was a prominent businessman. His mother, Sunita Kapoor, was known in elite circles for her charity galas and diamond-studded appearances at high-profile events. Ananya, on the other hand, came from what people would politely call a simple background. Her father, Arvind Mehra, lived in their hometown of Jaipur. He rarely attended social functions and avoided public attention. He dressed modestly and spoke softly. To outsiders, he seemed like an ordinary retired man who spent most of his time reading books and tending to a small garden. The Kapoors assumed he was insignificant, and that assumption would one day become their greatest mistake. In the early days of marriage, Ananya tried desperately to fit into the Kapoor household. She learned which fork to use at dinner parties. She memorized the names of influential guests. She adjusted her wardrobe to match the refined tastes of her mother-in-law. She smiled through subtle jabs about her middle-class habits. But subtle jabs soon turned into open criticism. Sunita Kapoor would comment on the way Ananya spoke. "Try to soften your accent," she'd say at breakfast, as if it were casual advice. Rajiv would question her opinions during business dinners. "You wouldn't understand these matters," he would say dismissively. And Rohan, at first, he defended her. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, he began siding with his parents. "Just adjust," he would whisper at night. "They're not used to, different environments. Different environments. Different." That word became a knife. 2 years into the marriage, things worsened. Rohan grew distant. Late-night meetings became common. Business trips extended longer than necessary. Whispers reached Ananya's ears, rumors of another woman. When she confronted him, he didn't deny it. "I need someone who matches my world," he said coldly. "You're a good person, Ananya. But you don't belong here." Her world shattered in that moment. The divorce proceedings were swift. The Kapoors' legal team was ruthless. They portrayed Ananya as unstable, ungrateful, incapable of handling the lifestyle she had married into. In court, their lawyer subtly implied she had married Rohan for money. Ananya sat there, hands trembling, as Sunita Kapoor smirked from the opposite side of the room. The final humiliation came during a family gathering, one last meeting to settle matters privately. The Kapoors invited extended relatives, claiming it was necessary for transparency. In truth, it was a spectacle. In front of uncles, aunts, cousins, and family friends, Rajiv Kapoor handed Ananya an envelope. "This should be more than enough for someone from your background," he said loudly. "We are generous people." Laughter rippled across the room. Sunita leaned forward. "Take it, dear, it's more than you would ever earn on your own." Ananya's cheeks burned. Her throat tightened. She looked at Rohan, silently begging for even a flicker of remorse. He avoided her gaze. She took the envelope, not because she needed it, but because refusing would only fuel their cruelty. She walked out of that mansion with her dignity hanging by a thread. That night, she boarded a train to Jaipur. Her father was waiting at the station. Arvind Mehra didn't ask questions. He simply opened his arms. And for the first time in months, Ananya allowed herself to cry. Days turned into weeks. She expected her father to express anger, to curse the Kapoors, to demand revenge. But he didn't. Instead, he listened. When she finally told him everything, the insults, the betrayal, the humiliation, his eyes darkened, not with rage, but with something quieter. "Resolve. My daughter," he said gently, "do you think their words define you?" She shook her head, though part of her still felt broken. "Good," he replied, "because your worth was never in their hands." Arvind Mehra had spent decades building a technology company in silence. What began as a small software startup in the early 1990s had grown steadily under his leadership. He avoided media attention, he refused flashy interviews, he reinvested profits instead of flaunting wealth. Over time, his company became a key player in cybersecurity infrastructure, partnering with major banks and government institutions across India. Quietly, consistently, it expanded internationally. By the time Ananya returned home, Arvind Mehra was not just comfortable. He was one of the most influential tech entrepreneurs in the country. But he had never told the Kapoors. Not because he was ashamed, but because he didn't need to prove anything. Months later, headlines exploded across business news channels. Arvind Mehra's company announced a multi-billion-dollar merger with a global tech giant. The deal positioned the company among the top cybersecurity firms in Asia. Suddenly, reporters were camped outside their Jaipur home. Interviews flooded in, and standing beside Arvind Mehra at the press conference was Ananya. Poised, confident, radiant, she had spent months learning the business from the inside. Her father recognized her sharp mind and natural leadership. He appointed her as Director of Strategic Development. Under her guidance, the company launched initiatives supporting women entrepreneurs and survivors of emotional abuse. One evening, during a televised interview, the anchor asked Arvind Mehra how he felt about his sudden rise to public fame. He smiled. "I was never rising," he said calmly. "I was simply building." In Mumbai, the Kapoor household fell silent as they watched the broadcast. Sunita's face drained of color. Rajiv gripped the remote tightly. Rohan stared at the screen, disbelief etched into his features. The woman they had mocked. The daughter they had dismissed. She was now part of an empire far beyond their reach. Within weeks, the real estate market took a downturn. Several of the Kapoors' high-risk investments collapsed. Banks tightened regulations. Projects stalled. The same business circles that once praised Rajiv Kapoor began distancing themselves. And then came the call they never expected. Arvind Mehra's company announced a strategic acquisition, purchasing distressed real estate assets in Mumbai for redevelopment into tech hubs. Among those assets, Kapoor Construction's largest unfinished project. The deal was legal, clean, inevitable. At the signing meeting, Ananya walked into the conference room wearing a simple ivory sari. Not flashy, not arrogant, just powerful in her quiet confidence. Rajiv Kapoor avoided eye contact. Sunita attempted a polite smile. Rohan looked like a man confronting his greatest regret. Ananya spoke professionally. No bitterness, no mockery. She treated them the way they had never treated her, with respect. When the documents were signed, she stood up to leave. Rohan finally found his voice. "Ananya, I didn't know." She paused. "You didn't ask," she replied softly. And that was the truth. They had never asked who she was beyond their assumptions. They had measured her worth by her background, never realizing that true strength often wears the simplest clothes. Years later, Ananya established a foundation supporting women navigating divorce and financial independence. She shared her story, not to shame the Kapoors, but to empower others. Humiliation is temporary, she would say at conferences. But self-worth is permanent when you choose to protect it. The Kapoors eventually recovered, but their arrogance never fully returned. Life had humbled them in ways no courtroom ever could. As for Ananya, she never remarried out of fear or desperation. She rebuilt her life on her own terms. Love, when it found her again, came gently and respectfully. And Arvind Mehra, he remained the same quiet man tending to his garden in Jaipur. Success had never changed him. It had only revealed what was always there. So if you're watching this and feeling underestimated, overlooked, humiliated by people who think they know your value, remember this story. Sometimes, the world doesn't see your strength because it's still growing in silence. Sometimes, those who mock you are standing on foundations far weaker than your own. And sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't revenge at all. It's rising so high that their insults can no longer reach you. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories of resilience and triumph. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that their current pain does not define their future. Because you never know, the person they underestimate today might be the one who changes everything tomorrow.